Top stories tonight in Y News. Vice President and DepEd Secretary Sarah Duterte disclosed the new K12 curriculum will be adopted after the department finished reviewing the original version of the curriculum.
President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. has approved the importation of sugar not exceeding 150,000 metric tons amid the shortage of supply and surging prices of the commodity.
The Philippine National Police admits challenges in dealing with Pogo-related kidnapping cases amid lack of records.
The Philippine Space Agency verifies estimated drop zones of rocket debris from China.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, the 14th of September, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media channels. I am Harleen Delgado.
First in the news, the Department of Education, or DepEd, will implement a new curriculum for the K12 program. The new curriculum, however, cannot be implemented right away. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
Vice President and Department of Education Secretary Sara Duterte wants to improve the education sector in the country. According to VP Sara, DepEd already finished reviewing the curriculum of kinder to grade 10.
We're actually done with the review. We are currently presenting it. We initially presented it to the MANCOM, EXECOM, and then we will present it to other sectors from the government and the private sector as well.
Meanwhile, they are still reviewing the curriculum for grades 11 and 12. VP Duterte assures the department will listen to the comments and suggestions of various sectors in order to fix the K-12 program of the country. Under the K-12 program, students will have to finish 6 years in grade school, 4 years in junior high school, and 2 years in senior high school. However, the official clarified the new curriculum cannot be implemented soon.
It will take 2 to 3 years for us to implement new curriculum for the K-12. And I am trying to push the curriculum and instruction strand to do it in 1 year, and we will update you on that if we will be able to implement a new curriculum in a year or two. We're talking about academic school.
Meanwhile, the House Committee on Appropriations conducted the budget deliberation for the proposed 2023 budget of DepEd, where DepEd officials answered queries of lawmakers on the department's plan to solve the lack of classrooms, salaries of public school teachers, and the learning crisis in the country. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Vice President and Department of Education Secretary Sara Duterte claimed that if an additional 100 billion pesos will be given to DepEd, they will solve the problems in the country's education sector. During the budget briefing of the House Committee on Appropriations, VP Sara said it can address the issues in education, including the learning crisis among students, if additional budget will be given. The officials said the department will be able to open additional programs. DepEd has a proposed budget of 710 billion pesos.
So, initially po, lumapit na kami sa Pangulo at sinabihan ko po ang Pangulo na if you give me 100 billion, I will solve all the problems of basic education.
In other news, a maximum of 150,000 metric tons of sugar may now be imported with the approval of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Agriculture producers anticipate a positive impact on the local market. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
The Executive Order Number 2 for the crop year 2022-2023 was signed by the Sugar Regulatory Administration Board which was presided over by none other than President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. 150,000 metric tons of refined sugar will be allowed to enter the country as a result, and they must arrive no later than November 15. The industrial users would receive half of the entire import amount, or 75,000 metric tons, while remaining half would be distributed to consumers or the market. The timing of the importation, according to Samahang Industrial Agriculture Group or SINAG, would not have an impact on local producers but will positively affect the price on the local market. SINAG Chairman Rosendo So said imported sugar may be sold in the market at 60 to 70 pesos per kilogram.
So ang tingin lang natin, pag dumating ito, baka manormalize yung presyo.
The United Sugar Producers Federation supports imports and anticipates a price reduction of 10 to 15 pesos per kilogram. SRA Acting Administrator David John Tadeus Alba stated in a statement that this importation is just meant to supplement the local supply because full local production will begin next month. The situation will continue to be monitored by SRA. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Energy Department is closely monitoring stakeholders in the power sector, while the Energy Regulatory Commission probes the recent incident of power outage. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why.
Technical deficiency is inevitable in the operations involved in supplying power to end users. As the power supply in the country thins in the last couple of years, any forced outage in plants, problem in the transmission line, or in the end of the distribution utilities may impact the power's efficiency. To avoid any power interruption, the Department of Energy conducts daily monitoring of the operations of stakeholders in the power sector. This includes the power plants.
Should there be instances like po nung nangyari nung Sunday, ito po ay minomonitor po namin more closely. Kung kailangan po namin tawagan yung planta, tinatawagan po namin yan on the spot. Di po kami naghihintay ng report lang. Ganon din po ang ginagawa namin sa ibang stakeholders, even NGCP, at even sa mga distribution utilities.
The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines reveals that some power plants implemented forced outage towards the weekend, but more plants were compelled to also undergo forced outage due to the tripping of the transmission line on Sunday morning. The NGCP explains the line was restored just within 4 hours, but it took another day for the power plants to resume operation. The DOE says they will conduct physical spot checks on the involved transmission lines and power plants. But the Energy Regulatory Commission on their part says they will verify the incidents that led to raising the grid alert status on Monday. The ERC plans to probe the reports submitted by the NGCP and the generating companies, including the actions done to get it back online. The regulator will also look into the cause of the tripping of the transmission lines and why the generating units were not able to get back online with the restoration of the line. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, weather phenomenon La Nina is expected to affect flood and drought patterns worldwide for the third year in a row. Mavian Dog will tell us why live. Yes, Maeve.
Mariel, the rare triple-dip La Nina has only happened twice since records began and is mainly driven by the breakdown of the climate. Head of long-range forecasts at the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, Dr. Andrew Watkins, said La Nina will bring more rainfall, with flood risks particularly in the eastern part of Australia as catchments are already full. La Nina is also expected to bring more tropical cyclone activity in the Atlantic, while East Africa will continue to experience drier conditions with its fourth season of failed rains causing the worst droughts in decades. Meanwhile, the influence of La Nina on UK's weather patterns is less certain, but the Met Office suggests it will stop the milder prevailing southwestern winds and can cause cold weather. This triple-dip La Nina began in September 2020 and is expected to occur through the remainder of the year or early 2023. Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Mavian Dog, reporting live. A recent cholera outbreak in the Middle East has been announced as a serious threat by the United Nations. Paul Gatchalian will tell us why live. Yes, Paul, go ahead.
Mariel, the cholera outbreak originating from Syria is causing concerns from its quick spread across the Middle East. The outbreak was announced on the 10th of September, and according to Imran Riza, UN resident in Syria, the UN is pushed to take immediate action to prevent further damage. It is said that the cholera outbreak is linked to the severe drought and water shortages Syria is currently experiencing. Aside from this, the decade-long war has also damaged the national water infrastructure. Because of this, Syrians are forced to drink from multiple contaminated water sources, including unsafe water from the Euphrates River. This river runs from the north to east borders of Turkey and Iraq, which runs through the Aleppo province in Syria. Richard Brennan, Regional Emergency Director of the World Health Organization East Mediterranean region, stated that the WHO plans to scale up testing and surveillance efforts to treat contaminated waters in the most affected areas. Riza added that the UN is already filing appeals for increased funding, also to include Pakistan, where the recent floods have also been exacerbated the outbreak. Back to you, Mariel.
Paul, how many confirmed cases of cholera have been reported so far?
Well, Mariel, as of September 10, 936 cases have already been recorded. 70% are identified from Aleppo, while Deir ez-Zor has 20% of these cases. Other areas under investigation for more cases include Raqqa, Hazake, Hama, and Latakia. 8 total deaths have been recorded in Aleppo and 2 in Deir ez-Zor. Back to you, Mariel.
Thank you, Paul Gatchalian, reporting live. Ukrainian forces had reclaimed 6,000 square meters of territory in the east and south from Russian control so far in September, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said. Military experts view this as a possible breakthrough to the long-dragging conflict between Russia and Ukraine, as Russia admitted its loss of key cities in Kharkiv. Ukraine's counteroffensive in the Kharkiv region and the northeast proves to be a success, as more areas, including cities of Izium, Kupiansk, and Balaklia, were recovered, and Ukraine's forces is moving further. It has also progressed in the southern Kherson region, where the Ukrainian army recaptured 500 square kilometers of territory. Meanwhile, Ukraine is getting ready if Russia continues to attack its power and infrastructure, which is expected to grow, according to senior presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak. Mourners lined the streets between Buckingham Palace and Westminster Hall for the Queen's lying-in state at the Houses of Parliament. Giona Privado will tell us why live. Giona, when did the people start to line for the lying-in state of Queen Elizabeth?
Yes, Marielle. As early as last night, people began queuing the streets as Queen Elizabeth II's body was brought from Edinburgh, Scotland to Buckingham Palace here in London, United Kingdom. Large queues form along the banks of River Thames. Many are patiently waiting for the Queen's lying-in state.
It's a very special occasion, and it's not likely to happen again, certainly in my lifetime, that I'm going to see someone so important on a day like this.
She's someone worth waiting for. She just meant so much to everybody.
I'm happy to wait, yeah, because I loved Her Majesty. What a wonderful lady. I think she's just, I've only ever known the Queen. You know, I've grown up, it's all I've known all my life, so it feels strange not having her here, but I'm sure Prince Charles will be a fantastic king, so.
Pinaglaan na namin ito para makita namin yung posisyon on the last time.
Nakahanda ako na pumila kasi itong araw na to para sa kanya.
Marielle? But before this, at 2:22 p.m. Britain time, or 9 5:22 p.m. Philippine time, the coffin will be placed on a horse-drawn carriage to be taken through central London to Westminster Hall. King Charles III will be joined by his two sons, Princes William and Harry, and other senior royals for a solemn procession. With much of central London closed to traffic, large crowds are expected to line the route to watch Wednesday's procession, which will be accompanied by guns firing every minute at Hyde Park. Also, Parliament's Big Ben bell will too. When the cortege reaches Westminster Hall at the Palace of Westminster, the coffin will be carried inside and a short service will be conducted. 4 days of lying in state will then begin until the funeral on September 19. Marielle?
Giona, according to the British government, how many people are expected to join the queue to file past the Queen's coffin?
Yes, Marielle. With as many as 750,000 mourners are expected to file past the coffin of Queen Elizabeth II during the period of lying in state. The Department for Culture, Media and Sport has warned that extremely large queues could go up to 30 hours. Marielle?
All right, thank you, Giona Privado, reporting live from London, United Kingdom. Meanwhile, in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declared September 19 as a federal holiday to mark Queen Elizabeth's funeral. However, most working Canadians will not get the day off. Miguel Maldez will tell us why.
Prime Minister of Canada Justin Trudeau has announced September 19th as a national holiday to give Canadians time to observe and tune in to the Queen's funeral. But as it is a federal holiday, only federal government employees will be getting a paid day off. The employment of the majority of Canadians, 85 to 90% to be exact, is regulated by the provincial governments. It is up to the individual provinces whether or not their workers will be getting paid a day off. The provinces of Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba decided not to declare September 19th as a statutory holiday, but only as a commemorative holiday. This means their working residents have to report to work, although they encourage employers to mark the day in a sensitive way for workers. The provinces of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland are joining the federal government and have declared the Queen's funeral as a provincial holiday. Their working residents will get a paid day off to watch the Queen's final send-off. British Columbia, on the other hand, declared the day as a paid holiday only for those who work in the public sector. Those in privately owned companies will not get a day off in that province. Miguel Maldez, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Investors of the popular social media platform Twitter voted in favor of pursuing the sale of the company to Elon Musk after he backed out of the deal. Joselito Liquido will tell us why live. Yes, Joselito.
Good evening, Marielle. Social media giant Twitter will now try to force Elon Musk to buy the company in the courts for $44 billion after investors made a decision during a short conference call on Tuesday. 98.6% of the shareholders' votes indicated that they were in favor of the deal and released a statement just days after Musk sent his third letter to Twitter seeking to terminate the deal. The letter from Musk was based on Twitter violating a provision of the contract not allowing them to provide severance payments to employees outside the ordinary course of business. Twitter reportedly gave $7.75 million to Peter Zatko, their former head of security, as a severance payment, who later blew the whistle on the company's alleged security flaws. Last week, a judge ruling allowed Elon Musk to use Zatko's testimony, which largely focuses on national security issues and is not officially connected to Musk's attempt to pull out of the deal. Elon Musk and representatives from Twitter are set to meet in front of Delaware court on October 17, where a judge will decide whether or not Mr. Musk has to buy the company. Marielle?
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, for that live report. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Mariela Toza reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
A lawmaker in the upper chamber has urged the economic managers to look into the alleged parked funds in the proposed budget of the Department of Public Works and Highways. This report will tell us why. Senator Alan Peter Cayetano wants the Development Budget Coordination Committee to probe the alleged syndicate behind the so-called parked funds in the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH. In today's budget briefing, Cayetano presented before economic managers several samples of congressional districts that allegedly suffered huge cuts under the National Expenditure Program, or NEP, that was submitted by the Executive Department to Congress. Cayetano claims funds for various projects in 10 districts were slashed, which could be a case of what he calls an expanded fund parking scheme.
Maraming mga distrito ay tinanggalan, 500 million, 2 billion, 6 billion. Tapos may lumalapit sa kanila, ibabalik namin yung pondo, pero may kontratista ng kasama. Kung hindi kayang gawin ng DPWH yan, kasi paano mo ibabalik ang pondo na wala kang kausap na congressman o senador? Hindi naman pwedeng gawin lang ng congressman kasi paano nabawasan yung NEP?
The proposed budget for DPWH for next year is at 717 billion pesos, which is lower than the current budget of the agency. Cayetano adds he will write a letter to Senate President Mig Zubiri for his questions to DPWH Secretary Manuel Bonoan once he faces the powerful Commission on Appointments.
Why confirm him if may nangyayaring ganyan? Diba? But of course, we'll give him all the chances to answer. That's why sabi ko nga, kung eto mga frustrated lang dahil walang pondo sa lugar nila, lalabas at lalabas naman ang totoo.
The DPWH has yet to comment on the matter. Harding Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The powerful Commission of Appointments has confirmed the ad interim appointments of Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla and Interior and Local Government Secretary Benhur Abalos. As he faced questions from the panel, Remulla maintained that the International Criminal Court has no longer jurisdiction in the Philippines. He also suggested to amend the witness protection law to include law enforcement officials under Witness Protection Program to abate the problem of lack of witnesses in drug war cases. Meanwhile, Abalos vowed to instill reforms under his helm, including hiring more personnel and modernization of facilities in the attached agencies of the DILG, such as the Bureau of Fire Protection and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. However, Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma failed to secure the CA's nod today after the hearing was suspended due to lack of material time. This, as Senator Risa Ontiveros says, she wants to ask further questions coming from the labor sector. His confirmation hearing will resume on Tuesday, September 20.
The Philippine National Police committed to stepping up its operations in an effort to combat the rise in abduction cases involving Philippine offshore gaming operators. The National Police admits that there are still a number of obstacles to overcome. Leia Ilagan explains why.
The kidnapping of POGO employees in the Philippines is a problem that the Philippine National Police find it difficult to focus on. This, according to PNP Chief Police General Rodolfo Asurin Jr., is due to the lack of record or list of foreign employees that work for POGO in the Philippines. Therefore, he said that they require the Bureau of Immigration's assistance in this regard.
Part po ito ng mga pag-imbestiga natin at coordination sa ating mga immigration na dapat makategorize po natin, and at the same time ang pulis po ay hindi po sila nabigyan ng kopya who are the POGO operators who are legitimately operating in our country.
The PNP also acknowledged that this year's rate of kidnappings connected to POGO is higher than it was last year. According to PNP AKG records, there were 20 kidnappings related to POGO this year, compared to 14 in 2021. Azurin said they will deploy more personnel in areas where POGO operated.
There's a need na i-beef up po namin ang police presence po sa mga entertainment city areas, specifically in Parañaque, Pasay, and Makati, So, I don't know kung napapansin po natin na marami na hong pulis na nagpapatrolya doon.
A kidnapper and his Chinese-Malaysian cohort were arrested at NAIA Terminal 1 yesterday. Lim Vun Pei, a Malaysian national, was kidnapped by the suspect Justin Alaraz. Authorities are still searching for Alaraz's Chinese companion who picked up the victim at the airport. Leia Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Office of the Vice President debunks claims that Vice President Sarah Duterte uses a presidential chopper on a daily basis to get home to Davao City. Janice Inhente reports why.
Vice President Sara Duterte engaged the public on social media after revealing that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. lends her the presidential chopper to bring her home after attending official duties. The Vice President's office defended VP Duterte. Attorney Reynold Monsayak, Vice Presidential spokesperson, reiterates that VP Duterte does not use the chopper only on daily basis to get home in Davao City. Monsayak said although VP Duterte used the presidential chopper for official and work functions, she also uses land vehicles every day. Monsayak revealed that VP Sara Duterte and her family have moved to Manila with her children studying here.
Fake news ho yan na araw-araw ginagamit yung chopper para umuwi sa Davao. Una ho, Manila-based na ho si VP at ang kanyang pamilya. Dito na po nag-aaral ang kanyang mga anak. Tapos ho, land vehicles po yung ginagamit ho nila.
Monsayak assumes that VP Duterte knows how to protect government resources at all times. While the presidential fleet is reserved for the priority use of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Philippine Air Force clarified that it can also be used during official trips by other top government officials, including the Vice President. Colonel Maria Consuelo Castillo, AFP spokesperson, assured that Vice President's administrative movements are always done within the bound of its established protocols. Janice Inhente, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
After the lifting of the deployment ban of Filipino workers to Saudi Arabia, a few recruitment agencies hope that their business will slowly recover. Dante Amento tells us why.
The deployment of Filipino workers to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will resume beginning on November 7, 2022. The deployment ban, which was implemented last year for some issues such as non-payment of salaries and maltreatment against Filipino workers, has been lifted by the agreement of both countries.
Bakit November 7? Kasi we also need time to prepare. We need to meet with the Philippine recruitment agencies deploying to Saudi Arabia.
Hence, some recruitment agencies express gratitude with this development that will allow their businesses to recover.
Siyempre, kaming mga sa agency, sobrang happy kami kasi almost 1 year, wala talaga kaming, yung almost empty yung mga agency dahil sa pag-close ng Saudi deployment. Kasi actually, yan talaga yung pinakamalaking namin kita ng sa agency, yung Saudi deployment. Compare sa ibang Middle East country. Kasi sa Saudi, malakas, mabilis yung deployment at saka malaki rin yung remittances.
In fact, applicants are now inquiring job orders or vacancies in Saudi Arabia.
So ngayon, nag-start na kami market ng mga applicants, yung mga willing mag-Saudi. At saka marami na rin kasi naghihintay ng pag-open ng Saudi.
I think magandang opportunity po yun, lalo na sa mga tulad namin na kailangan talaga ng experience. Ganyan. And mas gusto mag-work abroad kasi mas maganda yung experience doon, lalo na yung mga facilities, mas advanced.
Meanwhile, Secretary Ople added that one of the agreements with the government of Saudi Arabia was to guarantee the welfare of Filipino workers. If the employers abuse it, it will be a reason to terminate the contract early. Dante Amento, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, urges their field personnel to still wear face masks outdoors. This is in light with the executive order allowing voluntary wearing of face masks in outdoor settings. Asher Kadapan Jr. details why live. Yes, Asher, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Will. Wearing a face mask serves as protection not just against COVID-19 infection, but it also acts as a defense from traffic-related air pollution that affects the health or traffic enforcers and street sweepers. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority explains this as they urge their field personnel to continue using face masks outdoors. MMDA Acting Chairman Engineer Carlo de Mayuga III, however, emphasizes that he supports President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. on optional wearing of face masks outdoors. But with regard to MMDA traffic enforcers on the field, he encouraged them to still wear masks as prevention from pollution emitted by vehicles along major thoroughfares. He adds that traffic enforcers and street sweepers face the risk of acquiring respiratory illnesses in the performance of their duties. The MMDA chief emphasizes that the health of their personnel is of utmost priority of the agency. The MMDA also drafted a memorandum to all its employees, urging them to still strictly adhere to the minimum health protocols. Well, under Executive Order Number 3, wearing of face masks in open spaces and non-crowded outdoor areas with good ventilation is now optional. But it was also stated in the EO that physical distancing should still be observed at all times. That's it for tonight. Back to you, Will.
Yes, thank you, Asher Kadapan Jr. reporting live from Caloocan City.
A health expert says that the easing of the mask mandate means that the Philippines is slowly moving to the endemic stage against COVID-19. JP Nunez will tell us why.
An infectious disease expert explains how the COVID-19 situation in the country has already shifted into the endemic stage today. Dr. Anna Ong Lim said that it is now like dengue and measles, in which even if every individual in the world becomes infected, it does not impact the normal living of the people.
Ngayon, we are shifting to what we call an endemic response, where we treat it as we treat other conditions na hindi naman natin minamaliit, pero hindi tumigil ang pagkilos ng ating buhay dahil nandoon yung sakit.
She added that the easing of the mask mandate in open areas is already an indication that COVID-19 in the country is already at endemic level.
Ang pagluwag ng mask mandate actually recognizes that this is endemic already. In the same way that we recognize that dengue and measles and all of these other diseases are endemic, and yet we don't let their presence stop the way we interact with each other in communities.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization still considers COVID-19 a public health emergency of international concern, and its pandemic category has not been lifted. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippine Space Agency was able to verify the estimated drop zones of debris from China's rocket Long March 7A or CZ-7A. According to PHILSA, two drop zones have been identified based on the notice to airmen or NOTAM issues by the Civil Aviation Administration from China. Drop Zone 1 is around Burgos, Ilocos Norte, while Drop Zone 2 is around Santa Ana, Cagayan. PHILSA explains falling debris still poses a threat to ships, aircraft, fishing boards, and other vessels that will pass through drop zones. The agency reiterated its advice to the public to immediately inform local authorities of suspecting floating debris sighted at sea. Our kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of James, chapter 3, verse 13. It says, "Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom." And those are the reasons behind the news, September 14, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Harley Delgado.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.